so be it. Mr. Burnham is back from his week on the beach.
He is.
And I think he's facing his first, we'll call it mini crisis of his short reign. And to some extent, my hypothesis is it's been caused by himself.
Right.
And this is the prisoner's release scheme, where before he went on holiday, he became aware that the two lads involved in the killing of PC Harper, that dreadful crime where he was dragged for some distance, were likely to be released quite early under the revised prisoner release scheme. And whilst I can understand his empathy with the wife and the mother of PC Harper, he probably was a little bit ill-advised to make promises or strongly suggest that decision to release would be revisited before establishing the facts. What it says to me is that we are in danger of having a prime minister who is trying to govern by popularity and trying to keep everyone happy, because tomorrow it could be somebody who's on an NHS waiting list for something, and he's we've definitely got to get, and he's in a bit of a pickle. So just to set the scene, we all know that the prison population is pretty much maxed out. In fact, we got 87,000 today, and by March 2030, it could be up to 100,000 prisoners. It's just growing. Demand is rising faster than prison places. The system's already overcrowded, and there's a whole bottleneck in the justice system. And so what do? The solution that Mr. Starmer landed on was actually, understandably, to say who could we accelerate in terms of their release. But that's caused this issue in that, in this case, the two lads who were convicted of manslaughter, not murder, but manslaughter, they become eligible for release after, I think it's a third, isn't it, of their term.
Yeah. I think there was all three of them, wasn't it? There were manslaughter, in the sense that I think there was no premeditation to kill this guy.
But I know that it focused on two lads. I thought one lad was
one was driving the car, and I think he was the one who they expected or had more of a knowledge of what was happening than the other two. They were just passengers, I believe.
But that's okay. But when you look at it, you say, well, what are the Prime Minister's options? There's probably 5 or 6, so I won't go through them all. But one of those is clearly doing what he's doing, which is to accelerate early release and home detention. Another one was what you suggested last week, being to increase non-custodial sentences, perhaps for those who haven't committed violent crimes or sexual crimes, for example. And another one is obviously to reduce prison sentences, although that will be a longer term.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of different things. And the one that's got a lot of pickup with the right is to deport.
Yes.
Foreign nationals. There's 10,000 foreign nationals apparently in our prison.
Mr. Farage wanted to do this, didn't he? To El Salvador. Did you hear this?
Was it El Salvador?
El Salvador.
Okay.
Unfortunately, nobody's spoken to the El Salvadorian government. They don't know anything about it. And all of a sudden they were supposedly going to be taking all of our... We're going to have chats with them afterwards about them taking our prisoners, which seems a bit bizarre.
It's bizarre. Well, perhaps they could put them on one of those long boats that we saw.
Yeah.
Did you see that dinghy? They're now calling it... There were 260, was it?
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it... What can you say? I don't know. I didn't even know they made dinghies that size. I mean, that...
Well, probably only for one purpose, I would suggest.
Well, yeah. I mean, there was a fantastic Mac cartoon. Did you see that? Where
I did see
there's a woman sitting on the beach when taking passengers for rows into heaven. Very politically incorrect, but very funny. Yeah, but anyway.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So there's all these sorts of things that he can do, but they've landed on the early release scheme as the... So my point really is less to do with the specifics of the dreadful case of PC Harper. And obviously, our heart goes out to his family, and it must be unbearably painful. But you can't have a prime minister who blows in the wind like this, because it raises the hopes of the family to start with. It would devastate them if he can't deliver. It must cause havoc for the leaders of the prison service who have to manage this headcount.
Yeah.
where are we today? For those prisoners who think they might be in line for early release, it must be confusing for them. The whole thing is a mess.
Yeah, he's turning himself into a hostage to fortune, isn't he?
He
really,
is. And the other stakeholder group is obviously law enforcement, because now they can get on the back of this debate and say, well, if that's the way that our police force are going to be treated when one of our members and colleagues dies or is murdered, then what does that say to us? So it's just a word of caution. And when he reflects on this, he might have done this differently, and it is a consequence of these sort of soundbite type of politics, isn't it? You were talking off air about you don't see lengthy, in-depth interviews with him, do you? Hanking back to the past, the Brian Walden type interview. And if you're going to do social media clip-ups about these things, you've got to be careful, because you're running the country. You're not running Manchester.
Well, there's a danger that he's going to become a populist politician, isn't it? That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to be all things to all men and women, isn't he? He's trying to, if anything crops up that he thinks that he can put forward that's going to make him popular in the public's imagination. But there comes a point, doesn't there? I mean, to a degree, Boris Johnson used to do this, didn't he? But then there comes a point where they realise that he's not delivering on any of these things that he's offering. Now, he's got to deliver on this, because I think it's so early in his premiership, and having gone so far down the road and effectively said to I think it's the Attorney General who's told to go away and find a solution to this before Parliament sits again in September. There's no choice. He has to come up with it's a bit of a job. Who is I'm saying sent him away. It might be a her. I don't know who the Attorney General is.
I actually thought it was the Prisons Minister, and I'm afraid I can't remember their name.
Is it the Prisons Minister?
But it doesn't really matter, does it?
No.
Somebody in that sort of line of management has got to come up with a plan.
I agree with you entirely, which just makes a change. We agree on this. But this morning I saw that we've got these 30 or 40 prison governors all signing a letter to the Times.
That's right.
Sorry, not prison governors. Constables all signing a letter to the Times saying that this must happen and that must happen. They're leaping on this populist bandwagon, aren't they? Because they didn't make any noise about this when this particular law was passed in terms of early release. But now they can see which way the wind's blowing. Now, nobody's suggesting in an ideal world that these two young guys who've shown no remorse, apparently. That's adding to the equation that we keep seeing the video of them effectively. Effectively, have shown no remorse whatsoever. Nobody's suggesting that in an ideal world they should be released. But you can't have, you're quite right in what you're saying, you can't have one law for one set of people and another. That's why I'm a little bit concerned about this law that they're touting at the moment about you should have longer sentences for people who kill members of the services, not the armed services, the policeman, ambulance person, doctor,
first responders,
first responders, effectively. Yeah,
to borrow an American phrase. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, where does this stop? Is it just in the line of their duty, or is it when they're in the street buying a magazine and a sandwich from Sainsbury's? One has to ask why. If this should be left to judges to decide what the circumstances were and what sentence they hand down, and they should be given they should have sentences available to them that they can make that decision that, it's a policeman, they were doing it in the line of their duty, they were doing such and such, and I will give them the maximum term that they can be given. It shouldn't be politicians handing down if somebody kills a policeman, they have to have 30 years. I just don't think that's the way, I
think it's right that Parliament should sort of set the guide rails and say, I think they call it tariff, don't they? An offence of this type, here's the maximum tariff, and then it's normally for the judge to row back from that, isn't it?
No, absolutely.
I don't think so the judge is limited, and I may be wrong, but I think manslaughter's 15 years or something like that. But
would you set that for a specific profession?
I think
as opposed to in general?
It's really, really difficult, and this is the point we're making here. I don't know who's advocating for that, but
it's a law
I think
they're talking about bringing in.
Okay, well then it's the law unintended consequences, as you say. Under what circumstance would the first responder's murder be deemed maximum tariff, for example? As you say, doing their duty or doing something else. And just a tangential thing, which I saw earlier today at lunchtime, is the one of the heads of the probation service who inspect the probation service said that it's all very well people talking about early release under probation, but we're at capacity because their head count was obviously designed for a different model. And one of the reasons we got a high population in prison is because prisoners who are released early don't adhere to their probation commitments and therefore are sent back in. Anyway, it's obviously requires quite a thorough solution, and it's not for me as something that can be resolved by the Prime Minister off a whim, doing a Trump, dare I say, and saying, right, absolutely, executive order, here we go.
It's a similar argument, isn't it, to the releasing people from hospital into care homes. There aren't enough spaces in social care to be able to get them out, and that's the same, same argument here. And no, I agree with you entirely. I don't think. Let me throw the question back at you so that we can tail this off. What do you think is going to happen here?
You're probably right. They'll probably find a way of changing the law, and it is law, isn't it? That means that these two young men will remain, but that will mean others have to be affected. I don't see that they can single out two men as opposed to a category of offence. So I think that's what will happen. That's where it's feeling it's going. Or they just have to accept that they do have to reduce the sentences across all of this category of crime, which will be a PR disaster. But, he's got time to recover from that.
Yeah. I guess they do have, ultimately, they have recourse to law if they feel they're being treated unfairly, don't they, at the end of the day?
Well, that's a really good point. I mean, if they're being singled out, although it's, you struggle to think about it, yes, they'd have recourse to the law 100%.